Firstly, this is a pre-welcome. I'm Steve Klein. This is a pre-welcome to the day's proceedings. But all I'm here to do right now is to introduce John Brown for this quite significant ceremony. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Steve, and a big welcome to you all here today, and thank you for coming along. So this was the only winery this side of the Hume Freeway. It had been for about 60 years, since Cellar went through and wiped out all the little vineyards that used to be here before. So I joined my dad at the end of 1958, and our bottled wine sales were almost non-existent at that time. The wine from here all went out to merchants like Seabrook Wines and Rheincastle Wines, organisations like that that took the wine in wooden barrels, quarter casks and hogsheads. Quarter casks held about 40 gallons, 160 litres. Hogsheads held 60 gallons, what's that, 280 litres. And we used to fill them down there and roll them out the door, put them on a truck and take them into the railway station in Wangaratta and ship them to Melbourne or Sydney. It was at a time when people were really starting to appreciate wine. Before that, winemakers or wine consumers were mostly into, spirits, alcohol consumers, put it that way. Were more interested in beer and spirits. There wasn't much wine consumed, but there was beginning to be a wine culture developed. And in this area we have a lot of Italian immigrants who came here to grow tobacco. And they certainly had a culture of wine. They brought that with them. I think it comes with their genes. And quite a bit of our wine had been sold to them. But the balance was going off in these quarter casks and hogsheads, the merchants. And my dad saw a changing in the market towards wines in the bottle, and most particularly red wines with some age on them. And we didn't have a cellar to bottle and store wines like that, so we felt that we needed one. So about 1964, we got to work with that and put a hole down on the ground just behind me here with a bulldozer to create a cellar. Now, I was the one who operated the bulldozer. I rather liked a bulldozer. You get a serious sense of control when you're on the levers of a bulldozer. I'm not a control freak really, but I did like that bulldozer. And scooped out a hole here, and while I was doing that, the timber from an old bridge on the Ovens River between here and Tarrawinji, which is about 5 or 6 kilometres north of here, was being taken down and replaced with a concrete bridge. But some of the timbers they were taking out were huge, big red gum beams, this sort of size. It was just ideal to structure up the framework to fill in this hole that I dug with the bulldozer and make it into a cellar. So we dug it pretty deep and put the timber work in it. Laid some old railway sleepers over the top to form a ceiling, and then pushed all the dirt back over the top, so it had about a metre of soil over the top. Ideal to store red wine for 4 or 5 or 6 years. And there was quite a demand for aged red wine in those times. It's all changed now. We haven't gone to screw caps, for heaven's sake. but in those days, there was a good commercial thing to put down young red wines, particularly the best of the vintage, and bring them out again 6 or 8 years later and put them on the market. So, after about 3 years, we had that cellar full, and the wines were moving quite well and looked quite profitable, and we felt we needed some more space. It just so happened on the 27th of November in 1967, we had one hell of a spring frost here. Now, spring frosts are usually all over by the first week in October, and we relax. But in 1967, there was this huge frost on the 27th of November. It culminated after about 3 weeks of really dry conditions, dry in the springs unusual for here, and a whole lot of cold wind coming from the south. And we woke up one morning, there's really heavy frost, and the vine's already in full shoot. The shoots were this long, and the fruit was already forming. It was the size of small peas. But by midday on that 27th of November, the whole vineyard turned black. At that time, that was almost the only source of grapes that we had, so our intake for the year was ruined. And all the vineyard guys out there didn't have a job to do. And because we're the only vineyard and winery in this locality, our guys were the only people who were skilled in doing vineyard work. We didn't want to lose them. We didn't have any work for them from the time of the frost through till pruning time, ready for the next year. So we decided that we'd start building this cellar. Didn't have much money because not having a crop of grapes to make wine and sell for the next 12 months was going to make the bank manager a bit unhappy. So my dad went and talked to the bank manager and managed to get some finance to build a cellar. And while he was doing that, I grabbed a bit of old school graph paper that I kept after I was at school, sheets of graph paper, and drew up some plans for an underground cellar. I'm not an engineer, I can sort of read building design stuff, so I drew up some plans, and I thought, well, these will be draft plans, so I'll go into the engineer's office in the Shire of Oxley, based in Wangaratta, and show them to the engineer in there and ask him what I need to do now to get approval. And he looked at them, the plans for about 5 minutes, and said, they look pretty good, give me 10 quid and I'll sign it for you. Unbelievable how planning regulations have changed today.
No, they have.
Yeah. So in a few minutes we'll go down and have a look at that cellar. But while all this was going on, we got the vineyard blokes making concrete blocks. The dad bought a couple of truckloads of river sand from just down the river, and a few bags of cement, and one of these hand block making machines, very RSI intensive. It's a machine that you have to slam like that to make the concrete solid inside the block making shape, and then just set them all out and let it cure and they go hard. So they formed the bin walls of the cellar ultimately that you'll find down here, and then of course we had to put concrete walls around it, and because it's underground we needed a roof, so we decided we'd make that out of concrete too. We built some forms to cast the walls. They're just made out of 6x1 hardwood, 6 inch by 1 inch hardwood. I suppose you people still think in terms of inches, can't you? Yeah. So 6x1 hardwood, and in slabs of 6 foot by 4 feet, and we used those to cast the walls. And once the walls were cast, we then put them horizontally, propped up the stringy bark poles. We cut them up in the bush and cast the floor on top of that. That all went pretty well, and then we had to put the building on top, and it's this building you see here, this roof. Roof trusses made out of steel, but the columns we purchased from second-hand telephone poles that came from Urana somewhere in New South Wales. They were advertised at the time, so the dad bought a truckload of these things. We went up and picked them up, brought them home and used them for the columns in here. So all done on the smell of an oily rag, like you had to do in those days. And so now that has become our cellar. On top was the bottling hall. The first time we'd had a proper bottling hall. Previously we just shifted a few barrels and things out of the way in the old barrels hall to make room for the bottles. But now we had a proper filling room, all enclosed, nice and clean, easy to keep sterile. And there was an elevator and lowerator, I suppose you'd call it, to take boxes of bottles. We used banana boxes because they were free to handle the bottles from the filling machine around into the underground cellar. So all of those bottles were just stored on their side. The bottle bins that we built are about 5 feet wide and about 8 feet deep, yay high, and the bottles are just laid on the sand on the bottom, and other layer of bottles on the top, again and again and again until they're right up to the roof. So when you looked at the bay of bottles, all you saw was the bottom end of the whole stack of bottles. You'd wonder why the bottom ones don't break, but sometimes you could go to one of these stacks and just pull out a bottle that was a bit loose down below, and the whole just stayed there and nothing collapsed. And it was always a good party trick to show people how safe it is. But I never really believed it until I saw it happen. Anyway, that was the story of the building and construction of it. It was an interesting time. You'll see my fingers are an inch shorter than they should be. That was from handling the bricks. You've no idea how abrasive concrete blocks are. And we didn't have leather gloves today like we do today, that sort of thing. But it certainly wore the end off my fingers. And that's the only bricklaying job I ever did, by the way, and I'll never do another one. But have a look at the quality of the work. I think you'd be impressed. So anyway, I think, Steve, that's probably about the story. And today we're going to open this cellar for you people to have a look at. The first time we've just had visitors down there, really. It's just been a working cellar. Oh, and actually we call it the family cellar now. It was just our commercial cellar for storing mostly red wines to age. Now we don't do it that way anymore because with forklifts we're able to move bottles in proper bins around much more quickly, and it's much less labour intensive. Of course, it keeps the cost down. So now we just use it to keep some of our best wines. Every year, some of our best wines we put away for future use. The family rather like to have access to those from time to time. But we also, sometimes we have special events and we bring those wines out. And people always enjoy now, even today when old red wines are not so popular. people still do appreciate them when we bring them out. And we're going to see some of those today, and I have to tell you, I'm looking forward to that because I don't see them so often now either. But I do hope you'll enjoy those.
Really all that's required is for a bit like the opening of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, John, for you to cut the tape. I don't think there's a horseman who'll come charging through and interrupt proceedings. But yeah, if you could officially cut the ribbon and open the cellar, and then we'll invite you to wander down and have a look. There's some terrific photos, historic photos on the walls on the way down. Have a look. There's some canapes coming around now, so it won't accommodate everyone at once, so but you'll all get a chance to go down. We will need to be back into the Epicurean Centre about 12:15. We're on a bit of a tight schedule. But so, John, yes?
Yeah, just one more thought I had. After we got this cellar built, it was in about August of the 1968 that we decided we'd have an official opening. And to make a feature of that, we put a time capsule down. We dug a hole in the bottom of the floor, circled it with concrete, and put in a whole lot of the best wines of the time that we had, and put them down with the idea of opening them in the year 2000. So that was going to be a period of 20 odd years. So anyway, we put them down. Some old newspapers of the day, or current newspapers of the day. Some photographs of construction of the cellar. And then we opened it up in the year 2001, I think it was, actually when we got around to happening. The wines were all terrific. There were a dozen bottles of wine in there, including some of our very first Noble Riesling in 1962. And it opened up beautifully, I have to say. Now, when we opened up in 2001, we replenished it with a stock of wines from that age as well. As you go down, you walk through the door to where the bottle bays are, the bottle bins. You'll see the time capsule on your right in the fifth bay on the floor in the ground. So look out for it.
Okay, John, scissors in hand, and the official opening of our cellars. Okay, well, we invite you to wander down and have a look. And there are some canapes coming around now. And if we start to herd you back up at some stage, please follow those directions, because there's some magnificent wine and food to be had in a very short while. So thank you, everyone. And please follow John down. Yes, go.